In this video, we're covering the 5 pillars that make up Peter Attia's science-backed blueprint for living better for longer. And we're also going to cover one major blind spot that exists in his blueprint that you can use on your own journey to get better results. If you're someone that feels overwhelmed by all this health and longevity talk, or feels like that's reserved for the medical experts or the marathon runners, let me show you why, even if your journey looks nothing like Peter Attia's or any of his clients, maybe you're just trying to feel better and lose a little bit of weight, you can still take some very simple personalized steps and make progress without burning out or becoming an obsessive data nerd. Here's how we're going to break all of this down. First, we're going to walk through each of the core 5 pillars in Peter Attia's blueprint. Second, I'll highlight the one place that he might be missing the mark. And third, I'll share a simple framework with you that I use with all my clients that'll help you overcome that so you can make the most of all the pillars here without getting overwhelmed. One of the biggest challenges in the health and longevity space right now is just the sheer amount of information. Every single social media post points out a food group, an exercise, or a supplement that you need to be taking or else. So it's often packaged as if you live in a vacuum and you need to be doing everything perfect or you're failing. So I'm here to try and bust that myth and make optimal health and longevity feel achievable and sustainable. Everything we're about to cover is science-backed and well-researched. I'm all about turning dense medical information into simple, practical steps. So pillar number 1 is personalized longevity medicine over one size fits all. And the core idea here involves a prevention-based, personalized, proactive approach to health instead of waiting for disease to happen first. So here are 4 ways you can do that. First, get a baseline beyond the standard panel. Look at biomarkers like lipid subfractions, APO B, LP(a), fasting insulin, high sensitivity C-reactive protein. Have somebody walk you through the most important markers you should be paying attention to. Second, you want to track these over time. Look for trends and don't just look for normal versus abnormal because these numbers can be different for everybody. And third, you want to identify your personal risks, looking at family history, genetics, and your current lifestyle. And fourth, and most importantly, you want to make targeted interventions, which could be supplements, nutrition tweaks, exercise plans. Here's an example of this pillar. Instead of just checking cholesterol once a year, Peter Attia recommends you monitor markers like APO B or high sensitivity C-reactive protein quarterly, and then adjusting your diet before the damage actually occurs. So if your family has elevated risk factors for dementia, this would be the equivalent of starting some brain training a few decades early. The second pillar in Peter Attia's blueprint is to use exercise as the ultimate longevity tool. And the core idea here is to build exercise capacity, not just aesthetics. And his exercise blueprint covers 4 main domains. Number 1 is stability, like balance drills or isometrics. Number 2 is strength, doing 2 to 3 full body sessions per week. Number 3 is zone 2 aerobic training, which is exercise at a conversational pace for 2 to 4 hours a week. And number 4 is zone 4 or 5 anaerobic training. So those would be short bursts of maximum intensity 1 to 2 times per week. Here's an example of how you might implement this pillar. On Monday and Thursday, you do full body strength training. On Tuesday and Friday, you do brisk walks. And on Saturday, you do sprints. And then on each day, you're going to do some small amount of stability training. Over decades, this kind of routine will keep you strong and mobile well into your 80s and 90s. Pillar number 3 is optimize metabolic health and nutrition that's designed specifically for you. The core idea here is to use food as a lever for energy, performance, and prevention. And the 4 key components to this one are as follows. Number 1 is targeting protein, getting 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of your target body weight, and this will help you build and maintain lean muscle. The second is to manage your blood glucose, using a continuous glucose monitor for 2 to 4 weeks to help you get a baseline for how your body responds to certain foods. Number 3 is to time your carbohydrate intake, consuming more around your workouts and fewer carbs later at night, especially if you're noticing spikes in your blood sugar. And number 4 is to avoid chronic excess. You want to maintain a healthy meal composition. An example of this pillar would be using a continuous glucose monitor and noticing that oatmeal spikes your blood sugar pretty dramatically, and then swapping it for eggs and vegetables, resulting in better energy and better stability. Pillar number 4 of Peter Attia's blueprint is to manage the 4 horsemen of aging. And the core idea here is you want to tackle heart disease, cancer, neurodegeneration, and type 2 diabetes as early as humanly possible. And you do that by tracking 4 specific categories of metrics. Metrics for heart health involve biomarkers like APO B, blood pressure, or your CAC score. And tracking for cancer involves doing risk-based screenings much earlier than the standard ages that they suggest them at. Tracking for neurodegeneration involves measuring cardio fitness, insulin sensitivity, and also tracking when you might be running into challenges like brain fog or lack of focus. And tracking for type 2 diabetes involves biomarkers like blood glucose, fasting insulin, HDL to triglyceride ratio, or measurements of your waistline. An example of how to implement this pillar would be noticing that your CAC score is rising in your 40s, indicating some initial plaque buildup in your arteries. And then increasing zone 2 training, tweaking your diet, and working to lower your APO B in response. And last but not least in this blueprint is pillar number 5, training for the Centenarian Decathlon. And this is by far my favorite pillar. The core idea is to pick 10 tasks that you want to be able to do when you're 100 and start training for them now, working backwards. The first thing you do here is just list out some of these events. They could be as simple as carrying groceries upstairs, going for a 5-mile hike, or just playing on the floor with your grandkids. Then you want to reverse engineer what you would need to be able to do now in order to maintain their trajectory to achieve that outcome. And then the last step is just to practice them regularly. So here's a practical example for this pillar. If you want to be able to get up off the floor when you're older without using your hands, you better be sure that you can do that now. And in order to be able to do that multiple decades from now, you should probably incorporate certain training techniques like Turkish get-ups, where you're getting up off the floor while holding weight. So those are the 5 pillars to Peter Attia's blueprint. And before we get to the key thing that I really think is missing here, I want to be clear, I love the way that Peter Attia preaches preventative medicine. That is what I'm all about. And if you're still watching this, I think it's fair to say you're probably somebody that cares about being able to get on the floor and play with your grandkids and then stand up without pain or carry groceries without feeling winded. It's not about being a triathlete or a bodybuilder. It's about staying you for as long as possible. But here's the one thing that I think Peter Attia's blueprint is sorely lacking. And after we break it down, I'll show you how I tend to fix this with my clients. What I think he gets wrong is he over-engineers a blueprint without solving for the adherence problem. In other words, he makes it really complicated and impractical, especially for somebody that might struggle with motivation or discipline. His frameworks are world-class in precision and detail. And maybe his goal isn't to make them practical, but even for somebody like myself who lives and breathes health and longevity, it can feel like drinking from a fire hose. And a lot of them assume you have access to advanced lab testing, expensive wearables, or you just have a few free hours per week floating around to do structured training. And the result is most people feel overwhelmed and don't even start. Or they start too big, get burnt out, and then quit within weeks or months. It's not that the science is wrong. In fact, it's really well done research. But a lot of it just lacks a practical system for people living in the real world. And the truth is, optimal health and longevity aren't won by doing everything perfectly for 2 months. They're won by doing a foundation of the right things consistently for decades. Personalization is great, but the systems need to be simple, and the changes need to be incremental so that you can keep going without giving up or burning out. Even the best blueprint in the world is useless if you can't follow through with it. So here's one of the key frameworks that I use with all of my clients. The exact time frame is different based on the person and the situation, but they say a habit takes anywhere from 28 to 66 days to become a lifestyle. So when you're looking to improve your health, start by picking one thing to implement. Or if you're working with a coach, you can pick up to 2 to 4 small things, but you want to make sure they all converge around the same outcome or the same goal, like improving your sleep or trying to lose weight. And instead of locking yourself into one or multiple rigid habits, you want to create a system that incorporates variety and flexibility. Here's an example. Instead of committing to going to the gym 3 days a week, you set a goal of doing 90 minutes of exercise per week. That goal is flexible in terms of the type of exercise you do, when you do it, and how long you do it for. It gives you multiple paths to the same outcome with built-in backup plans when life inevitably throws you curveballs. Then what you want to do is track your adherence to that on a daily or weekly basis until you hit that 66-day threshold, or you just start feeling like it's automatic. Now, this is a really simple framework, and there are dozens of similar ones that you can use to make sure you get the results you want and that those results stick around. But hopefully this framework is something that will at least help you get started if you get overwhelmed looking at something like Peter Attia's longevity blueprint. You don't need fancy wearables, calorie tracking, or macro spreadsheets to get amazing results. You just need a concrete system that's built for you and focuses on incremental changes. So now you have Peter Attia's 5-pillar longevity blueprint, and you have a way to implement some of these suggestions and make them stick without drowning in complexity. So pick one area this week related to nutrition, exercise, stress, or sleep, and build your own flexible framework. Then track it so you can prove to yourself that achieving optimal health doesn't need to be overwhelming. If you can make it personal, manageable, and meaningful, you're much more likely to stick to it for the long term. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel so that I can make more videos like this. And if you have a system like this already, I would love to hear what you're doing, and I'm sure other people watching this video would really appreciate having an opportunity to get some crowdsourced ideas. So drop a comment or an insight, and you may help somebody else that's struggling with this. My name's Andrew. I'm a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and I'm the founder of Longevity Lifestyle. I appreciate you for being here, and I'll see you on the next video.